Okay.
Okay.
Well, I guess going into like, I guess problems and things that people don't know about, what are like, I guess, the most common like vagina problems? Because I feel
Yeah.
like most people don't talk about, I mean, like the UTIs and I don't know if that's common, but I'm just gonna say the ones I know off all the top.
I feel like people say that a lot. UTIs or yeast infections, BV.
Yep.
What else
There you
is
go.
there? Yeah, I listen through process of elimination, you realize BV and yeast infections are not the same thing.
Right.
And nobody talks
Oh,
about
whoa.
BV. Everybody talks about yeast infections. Then you get BV. Then they're like, oh,
BB
this
has
is
such
BV.
BB has such a stigma. So I'll say like the top
Yeah.
three things I see are one, BB, two, yeast, which is interchangeable with one and two, truly.
Mm.
And then three is something a little weird. It's called lichen or lichen sclerosis. There's lichen planus, lichen simplex chronicus. So I just call them lichen to kind of simplify it. So
Mm.
kind of talking about BV and yeast, I think BV has such a stigma because everybody like doesn't want the fishy vagina odor, and even like my guy friends will talk to me like, oh, I was with this girl and her vagina smelled like XYZ. I'm like, listen, part of the problem is probably you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, so
Yeah.
you need to stop with that and tell the girl she needs to get some treatment and stop stigmatizing her.
Mm-hmm.
But BV and yeast are super common. So BV is kind of like that fishy odor of the vagina. You kind of have a little discharge, but it's only like slightly itchy, not super itchy. That's usually BV, and that's really common. And then yeast infections are kind of like a thick white discharge that you see, and it's really itchy. So really itchy on the outside, like the vulva, and then also itchy on the inside of the vagina. So I would say those are like the top two most common, and those are treatable with medications. Some of them are even over the counter, like Monistat for yeast infections. So there's
Mm-hmm.
treatments for those things. I would say if you have a really mild case, some like over the counter things might work, but sometimes you need a doctor for a more severe case of it, especially if you have it chronically. Like some women get it all the time. Some women get BV every time they have sex or every time they have sex with a certain person,
Mm.
or a yeast
I heard
infection.
about that.
Yeah, or yeast infection every time they take an antibiotic, or they're out swimming, or it's like the summer, they're sitting in a bathing suit. So those are really common. It's kind of hard to treat the chronic ones, like the ones that get it constantly. We have to
Mm-hmm.
try a bunch of different things. Like I always tell people if they get them a lot to try probiotics every day because that helps. Like the vagina and the anus are really close together.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of like the same bacteria can intermix in certain people. So I always say start with like a daily probiotic if you get them all the time just to see. But those are the two most common. The third thing is lichen. Lichen is interesting. Lichen is almost like an autoimmune condition.
Mm-hmm.
If it's lichen sclerosis, for example, it's something that comes up all the time, and it's like the outside, like the vulva, become really itchy. You don't have an STD, you don't have BV or yeast. Sometimes you see like a change in the color of the skin, or sometimes you don't, and it's just like always itchy. Sometimes we have to biopsy the vulva in order to figure out that that's what's going on. But it's really common in young women and older women. It kind of has two age groups. So yeah, and that has a treatment too. It's something that doesn't go away completely, but we can manage it.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
learn something new. I never heard
I
about
know.
lichen.
Right.